Good day, everyone. This is part 3 of the snowspeeder build. Now, something I did is I took my Dremel and I notched these parts that I have here with a diamond burr. And so what you have is you've got your guns, but it's also a dual purpose. It is your engines as well. And so once these are in place like so, then you take your, basically a felt marker like a Sharpie or something, and you have to mark where those pieces, these edges are. All right, because what it is you've got a left side and a right side, but you need to build the, these onto it. All right, so once you've got those marks, then you know where this is going to be. Now, these are graduated. When you look at the pictures of it, it's graduated this direction. So in other words, towards the end of the barrel. This is the widest section, the next, and then the smallest section. And so you take your, get your glue on here like so. And this has to wind up on here just like you're gonna twist up a cigarette, a home roll, and all you have to do is get this to roll, and you want it to stay as tight as absolutely possible on there so that you have a good fitting piece. Now the glue will force itself ahead just by rolling it up that way. And you just keep rolling this up onto here like so. Wipe the excess glue off and then just twist it a little bit. And what you end up doing is now you have a graduated section that comes in front of the engine well. And this goes in here like so. If it is out of shape, it means it was the wrong side. Oh, and then you just slide it into place where you want it. And the nice thing is, these joints can be all put down under here like so. And what that does is it keeps the seams from showing. And so once that is done, which you have 2 of them, each one goes into place like so. I didn't like the way that one turned out, so we're going to do this. No, we can't have to do that one. Anyway, this twisted out of position here, there's nothing you can do about that. You either have to tear the paper out and start over, which you can do as well. But anyway, these seams, I like to put the seams down so you can't see them. And so now the thing is, I will take some of this other glue that I've got, because it is for bonding other things to other things. In other words, unlike substances. And I just put that down in place like that. And I do the same with this side over here. And so what I'm doing now is, as these parts keep coming together, your toy or your model is looking more and more realistic. And now what you want to do is you want to look at it this way and frontwise to see if it is lining up right. And one thing you want is you want your barrels to be equilateral or symmetrical. And that way your build looks really good when it's finished. So you have to turn it around here and there and get it to look right to make sure you're getting things proper. Now sometimes I just noticed that this needs to be cut back a little bit. The point was too long. So I take these micro scissors that I got and I just trim that off. Now I got to look at it this way. You look at it this way to make sure the barrels are lining up with each other from the cockpit side. Check it back on the front again to make sure that it is all still lining up right. And then that kind of has to dry. But while that is drying, you could be working on a second one or a third one, and it depends. If you want a squadron, if you want a fighter and a wingman, like they do in Star Wars, so you need two of them, then you can be working on your second one while this one is drying. I don't have that luxury right now, and so what I'm going to do is I am going to sheet this in. And one of the things to do with sheeting it in is that I have to have some more paper. Here we go. And I haven't used much of this. It's a very, very minute amount is what's going on with this. And so now what I have to do is, let's get my little ruler out. And I highly recommend getting one of these machinist rules because they're small, they're easy to work with, they're stainless steel, they won't make messed up. Basically, this is just under 1/2 inch, and that is just over 1/2 inch. So that means I want to cut 1/2 inch pieces. Alright, now I want to square this up a little bit. And so I just put that on there and I trim it down very carefully now. I cut very accurately when I'm doing something like this, because the straighter your edge is, the better it's going to look. And I need 1/2 inch, so I mark my 1/2 inch. All right. Otherwise, it is 5 centimeters or 5/10. Now, I don't recommend everybody doing this, but I can put my scissors on here and line them up just like that and keep them lined up like that, and that cuts an absolutely straight line because the blades of the scissors are straight. Now, what you have to do is figure out where this piece goes. And so what I've got is, and you don't want to push your guns out of position, so you have to be very careful working with this point. Yep, it's okay. Now, what I'm doing is I'm going to mark this out right there. All right, so now if you're good at cutting a square edge, then just freehand it. This is where tweezers come in handy because your fingers are too fat to be able to get very tiny precision work. And so now I check it and see how it looks. It looks good. So now what we do is we glue these 3 sides. Just like that. Then we put this piece in there. Just like that. And slide it down into place to make sure it fits right. Rub off the extra glue if you wish, you don't have to. And now I'm going to do the other side just like that. Because while this is drying, I'm working on the other side. And the reason being is this will get solid enough that I can actually put the top piece on. Now, and so at this point, this is what we got going on. Now it is just putting on all your little pieces. And that's part of the build process that sometimes takes a great deal of time to do. And there is side number 2. Now, this is a lot drier than it was. And so what I do is I go over here and I know that my engine covers are here. Okay, so now what we do is we just cut this other engine cover off, like so. And I let go of it and I'm holding it with the scissors just to make sure that I'm square. And now I want this to stick to the engine, the body of the engine. So I put extra glue right there. And then I start adding it in here, like so. Because what happens is once this sets up overnight and it dries, all of this becomes a solid piece. Oops, something I forgot. I got to do this edge too. So I just take some of this extra glue that I got here and I put it on there because what I want to do is I want this piece to glue to the other piece. All right, because what you're getting now is you're getting a solid piece of armor on this, and that's one of the build things that's fun to do, is how you can figure out how to make your armor work. And so now, actually, and I want this to be symmetrical, so I'm going to cut this piece to match this one over here. That way, both my pieces are the same size. Now this time, I will go ahead and glue all of it instead of just the one side that I did before. All right, now that I have enough glue on there, see, this piece will actually fit just perfect, just like that. And then we put that down into place, just like that. And now that engine cowling is almost done. All right, now one of the things is there's these little bitty pieces over here. All right, so that means this kind of has to be marked out. And so I just put that on there like that, and I make a little mark on it like this. Okay, so that is it right there, and I need 2 of them. So I have to cut these 2 little tiny pieces off of here. There's 1, there's 2. And now what we do is we just add a glue to this, like so. You take this little piece, and I do as much as I can, because it's painted, I put as much of the paint work inside as I can, because I've found that it doesn't paint well. Anything that has paint on it already doesn't accept new paint very well. And so I try always, when I'm building parts, to put the painted sides inward. That way you don't have to worry about going over it 10 or 20 times with your paint to get it to cover. Now that puts those end pieces on, and that's the thing that makes your building so fantastic over model kits, because model kits are all molded. Well, when you're building with paper, what you're doing is you are creating all your parts. And so the more detail you want on your toy is the more parts that you can put on it. Now I have this one cut. Now, I don't do this very often, but sometimes. Now I check this to see, okay, it's going to fit there. Now I check it over here. And it won't fit over there. It's a little bit smaller than the other side. Because you're building by hand, you have variances. Okay, so now that I know that I have a variance, I can't cut two of these and make them work. But I can cut it to length because that is correct. So now I have this piece is a little tiny bit bigger than the other one. So I now have the piece for that side. All right, now what I'm going to do is, and it's okay to have lots of extra glue on these inside parts because all it does is it gives you strength. Then you square that up just a little bit, and that is one engine side done. Now, the nice thing about having these dental tools is, see, I can take some of this glue out of there so that it doesn't, so you don't really see it. And now we take this piece and I put it on here like so. All right, on there just like that. Oh, wow. And that is almost perfect. So at this point in time, it's too hard to cut that. So what we do is we put our little sanding bit in the Dremel and we just take that edge off a little tiny bit and put it back and see how well it fits now. Okay, it needs a little more. And don't overdo it with your sander because it will take it off a lot quicker than you need to. Okay, now let's look at this and see how it's looking. I like it. All right, so now what we do is we just add glue like we did to the other one. Wipe that off that upper edge, and then we put our piece in place. And there is the engine compartment, made and finished. So now what do I have to do? Well, that point did not cut down like I wanted it to. But then again, I may not need to take it off much. So we just kind of scruff it up a little tiny bit, like so. And now what I need to do is I need to build this front section. Now the thing about this front section is it slopes straight down from the cockpit. And so this is the cockpit width right here. And when you look at your pictures, you see that it flares out just a little tiny bit. So what I want is I want a square piece, square as in this way. Okay, so now we look at it like this angle here. All right, this is the angle I need. And it has to be wide enough to go to those points and then straight down. So at this point, I mark off here to here. And then we take the scissors and we use the back of the jaws on these because this is an accurate type of cut that you have to make. Paint side in. And now that looks pretty good right there. So now what I have to do is I have to hold this in place and I have to make my mark over here. And now we cut this side out as well. This is all part of the fabrication process, and because of all the things that I've made in my lifetime, I understand how to make this stuff work like this. And so now that we have this here, see, and it should slide up underneath here just fine. Just like that. And now I need to cut this off here. And that is the front of the cockpit. I check it. All right, it's a little tight. All right, so what I want to do is I want to take this corner off just a teeny tiny bit. And I mean just a little teeny tiny bit. You don't need much, because what you'll find is a little bit of adjustment will make a lot of movement. All right, it's still a little short. All right, it needs to go up higher. And I don't want to push it, because if you push it in there, what happens is that it spreads the cockpit apart. And I don't want that. All right, so that means each side has to come down just a little bit more. Okay, so this is, both sides have to be worked down now. And so what I've got to do is I work that side down just a little tiny bit, and I work this side down just a little tiny bit more. And the thing about this is, yeah, the more you work with this, the more you learn how easy it is to actually get it to fit. Now that fits in there just perfect. Now I have diamond bits, and I look down here, that looks really good. That is the nose of your snow speeder. And so now we put in lots of glue, because this, what this is this becomes a solid piece. And so your toy will always be strong. And you put that into place like that, and then you push it down into place like this. You make sure that everything looks good when you're done. And there is the front of the cockpit. There's some little pieces that are going to have to be sanded down, and that's what you use your sandpaper blocks for, your different little pieces of sandpaper. And so, oh my goodness, is it still recording? It's still recording. I don't know if that stupid phone call messed up my video or not. I hope not. But there is the front of your snow speeder. There's your engine blocks. And now what I have to do is I have to put these front pieces on here. Now, the best way to do something like this, because it's very tiny, is you take some of this and you make a glue ball. All right, now, and here's something you have to do. All right, if you're going to cut out some of this stuff and make it into a part, you need two exact pieces, because you need a left side and a right side. So the nice thing about this paper is that it's two thicknesses. So I cut out one piece and I have both thicknesses right there. Now we put a little bit of glue right here where you can actually work with it. And now these go on to here just like that. And what I'm doing is I am creating a little wad of paper and glue. Now the thing about this is, when this dries, this stuff becomes cement. It's super tough. And so basically now I have my two little pieces. Now each one of these little pieces goes under here like this. And you just put it in place and tap it onto the chassis. Because what you want to do here is you want to build this up so that the guns will have something to rest on. Because when you put the top pieces on it, it's going to want to squish down. And you don't want that. So now I've got these two, it's what's called bridge work. Okay, you're bridging underneath here so that the guns cannot flex up and down. And with that bridge work in place and dry, now this is it, because it's made with Elmer's glue and paper. It takes this 6 or 8 hours to dry. So now what we've got is we have got this finished to where I can't go any further with it. And so thank you all for watching and tuning in to part 3. Now, if you want to, if you need build advice once you're getting to this point, I do a live show Monday through Friday on TikTok and YouTube. My YouTube channel is The Paper Engineer, which you probably know because you're here. The TikTok channel is The Real Paper Engineer. So if you need more assistance, you're stuck on something, you can't figure it out, come talk to me. I'd love to help folks. And yeah, welcome to the Paper Army. Thank you all for joining.